My name is Camille Carter and I am 33 years old. The night my sister announced she was having baby number 4, my family did not ask how I felt. They did not ask if I had time, if I was exhausted, or if I had a life outside of being useful to them. They just looked at me like the decision had already been made. We were sitting at a family cookout, plates still warm, sweet tea on the table, everyone smiling like another baby was a gift that somehow came with my schedule attached. My mother clapped her hands and said, "Another one, big party." Then she turned to me with that sweet voice people use when they are not asking. "You will handle the kids when your sister needs rest." My father looked across the table, not speaking, but his stare said the same thing it always said. "Do not embarrass the family. Do what you are told." I set my cup down and said, "Why me? That is not my responsibility." The whole table froze. My sister's smile disappeared first. Then she laughed, sharp and ugly, and said, "You are free. Consider it training." Training. Like my whole life was just practice for serving hers. I did not argue. I did not explain. I picked up my purse, took the dish I had brought, and walked out while they sat there waiting for me to feel guilty. I thought leaving quietly would end it. I thought one simple no would finally teach them where my life began and their demands ended. But the next morning, my phone rang from a number I did not recognize, and a calm voice said, "Good morning, Ms. Carter. I am calling from the police department. Someone has left 3 children at a community center with a note saying you are responsible for them." Before I tell you what happened after that, tell me what the weather is like where you are watching from. Does it match your mood today? And if you have ever been treated like the unpaid backup plan in your own family, hit like and subscribe, because this is the story of how one woman said no, and the people who depended on her kindness finally learned what boundaries cost. The drive to Lakeview Community Center took 14 minutes, but it felt like I was crossing from one life into another. My hands stayed steady on the wheel, but my mind kept circling the same sentence. Someone had left 3 children with a note saying I was responsible, not called me, not asked me, not even texted me, left them. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw 2 police cars near the front entrance and 3 small backpacks lined up against a bench like evidence. My oldest niece, Harper, sat stiffly with her arms crossed, trying to look brave. Miles was crying into the sleeve of his hoodie, and little Chloe was asleep against a community center employee who looked like she had already heard too many excuses from too many adults. Officer Briggs introduced himself with a calm voice and tired eyes. He asked if I was Camille Carter. I said yes. Then he showed me the note. It was written in my sister's bubbly handwriting. "Camille agreed to watch the kids today. Family helps family. We will pick them up later." I stared at those words for a long second because they were not just a lie. They were a trap dressed up as a favor. I unlocked my phone and showed Officer Briggs the messages from the night before. There was my mother saying I would handle the kids. There was my sister saying I was free and needed training. And there was my reply, clear as glass. "That is not my responsibility. I never agreed to babysit." Officer Briggs looked at the screen, then back at the note, and his expression changed. He stopped treating it like a family misunderstanding and started treating it like a report. I asked him to write down that I had not consented to take custody of the children. I asked the community center employee to give a statement that the kids had been dropped off before opening hours with no adult waiting for me. My sister and her husband arrived 40 minutes later, loud before they even reached the door. Marissa rushed in, rubbing her stomach, crying that stress was dangerous for the baby. Trevor walked behind her with his sunglasses on, acting like the whole building belonged to him. He pointed at me and said, "There she is, the aunt who calls cops on little kids." I did not raise my voice. I looked at Officer Briggs and said, "Please add that statement to the report." My mother, Elaine, came in next, followed by my father, Victor, and the room immediately changed. My father had been a respected man in our suburb for years, the kind of man people listened to because he sounded official even when he was wrong. He shook Officer Briggs's hand and said, "This is a family misunderstanding." My daughter gets emotional. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I was finally watching the machine in action. They did not need truth. They only needed everyone to believe I was difficult. Officer Briggs listened politely, then said, "Leaving children at a public facility with a person who did not agree to supervise them is not a misunderstanding." The silence that followed was beautiful. Marissa's crying slowed. Trevor stopped smirking. My mother looked at me like I had betrayed the family by letting facts speak. My father's face tightened. He knew Officer Briggs was not going to be charmed. I knelt in front of Harper, Miles, and Chloe and told them softly, "You did nothing wrong." Because they hadn't. The adults had. That mattered. I was not going to let anyone turn those children into shields. Then I stood up, looked at my sister, and said, "From now on, every request goes through text. No surprise drop-offs, no notes, no assumptions." Marissa hissed, "You are punishing me for being a mother." I said, "No, I am refusing to become one without consent." Trevor leaned close enough that I could smell his coffee and anger. "You think this makes you look strong? It makes you look bitter." I smiled at him for the first time that morning. "Then make sure you spell my name right when you tell the story." I left before they could pull me into another circle of guilt. But that evening, when I started making calls to protect myself, I learned the community center was not the first place they had used my name. It was only the first place that called the police. By 7 that night, I was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open, a notebook beside me, and a cup of coffee I had reheated twice but never touched. I started with Harper's elementary school, expecting one awkward conversation and maybe one emergency contact form. Instead, the school secretary paused when I gave my name and said, "Oh yes, Ms. Carter. You are listed as primary pickup if either parent is unavailable." Primary pickup. Not emergency only, primary. I asked her to send me whatever documents they had on file. Then I called Miles's preschool. Same thing. I was listed as approved pickup, backup payment contact, and weekday support person. Then I called Chloe's pediatric clinic and felt my stomach turn when the receptionist said, "We have you marked as authorized caregiver for appointments when the parents cannot attend." I had never signed any of it. By 9 o'clock, my email had 3 PDF files waiting for me. I opened the first one and saw my name written in a handwriting that tried to look like mine but failed badly. The C in Camille curled wrong. The last name was too stiff. Whoever signed it had copied letters, not a signature. The second form had my phone number, my address, and a sentence I had never written. "Camille Carter has agreed to assist with ongoing child care needs during pregnancy and postpartum recovery." Ongoing. That word made my skin go cold. This had never been about one day. They were building a paper trail to make me the second parent without asking me. My phone started buzzing before I could even process it. The family group chat had exploded. My mother wrote, "Camille, your sister is pregnant and scared. Stop making everything about yourself." My father wrote, "A real family does not need paperwork." Trevor wrote, "You wanted to act single and independent. Congratulations. Now everyone knows what kind of aunt you are." Then Marissa sent a voice message. I played it once. Her voice was shaky and dramatic. "I cannot believe you humiliated me in front of the police while my kids watched. I hope you are proud of yourself." I did not respond. I had learned that every reply became a weapon in their hands. Instead, I took screenshots. I saved the voice message. I downloaded copies of the forms. Then I searched for a family law attorney who handled harassment, custody boundaries, and false authorization documents. That was how I found Maya Chen. She answered her own phone even though it was late, and after 5 minutes of listening, she said, "Camille, do not meet them alone. Do not talk by phone unless you are recording legally. Do not accept the children into your care unless you are willing to be responsible for everything that happens while they are with you. And tomorrow morning, we send a letter." For the first time all day, I felt air enter my lungs. Maya told me the forms might not be a criminal case yet, but they were serious enough to create a record. She said people like my family depended on confusion. They blurred love, duty, guilt, and paperwork until the person being used could no longer tell where obligation ended. "We are going to make the boundary boring and official," she said. "That is how you beat emotional chaos." The next morning, Maya sent certified letters to Marissa, Trevor, Elaine, and Victor. The language was polite, clean, and sharp enough to cut glass. I had not agreed to ongoing childcare. I had not authorized anyone to list me as a primary caregiver. I demanded my name be removed from all school, daycare, medical, and activity forms. Any future attempt to leave children with me without written consent would be documented and reported. My mother called 12 times after receiving it. My father texted, "You brought a lawyer into family business." I texted back only once. "You brought my name into legal documents." After that, I muted everyone. For 2 days, silence returned. I almost believed the letter had worked. I almost believed shame had finally reached them. Then, on Wednesday afternoon, while I was preparing for an emergency operations meeting at the children's hospital where I worked, the front desk called my office. The receptionist sounded uncomfortable. "Camille, there is a man in the lobby with 3 children. He says they are yours." I remember walking to the hospital lobby with my badge still clipped to my blazer and my meeting notes in my hand. There are places where family drama feels ugly. A hospital is worse than ugly. It is dangerous. People come there because their children are sick, because time matters, because every hallway is built around urgency. And Trevor Blake had decided to turn it into his stage. He stood near the security desk with Harper, Miles, and Chloe clustered around him. Chloe had one shoe untied and a stuffed rabbit dragging on the floor. Miles was coughing into his sleeve. Harper looked embarrassed, old enough to know adults were staring but too young to stop any of it. Trevor grinned when he saw me. "There she is," he said loudly. "Aunt Camille, the career woman who has time for everybody's kids except her own blood." The security guard looked from him to me. I kept my voice low. "These are not my children. I did not agree to watch them. He has been sent legal notice not to do this." Trevor laughed and raised his phone. "Say that again for the camera." He started recording before I could even blink. "Look at her, everybody. My pregnant wife is at home sick, and her sister is refusing to help with 3 little kids for a few hours. At a children's hospital, of all places." That was the moment I understood how careless he really was. He thought public shame would force me to fold. He forgot he was standing in a building with security cameras, access logs, witnesses, policies, and people trained to document incidents precisely because lives depended on documentation. I turned to the guard and said, "Please call hospital security leadership and do not allow this man to leave children here." Trevor's smile twitched. "You cannot hold me here." I said, "No, but you cannot abandon minors here and pretend I accepted them." My supervisor arrived 2 minutes later. She had seen me handle power outages, bed shortages, ambulance reroutes, and parents screaming in fear. She had never seen my family. Trevor tried to charm her. He said I was overreacting, that this was private, that I had promised to help. My supervisor looked at the 3 children, then at his phone, then at me. "Mr. Blake," she said, "this is a hospital, not a drop-off center. You are disrupting operations and involving minors in an adult dispute. You need to leave with your children now. He lowered his phone. For the first time, he looked less confident. My wife is pregnant. My supervisor said, then your children need responsible arrangements. That responsibility is yours. Security escorted him out while he shouted that I would regret humiliating him. Harper looked back at me as she left. Her face was not angry. It was confused. That hurt more than Trevor's threats. I wanted to run after her. I wanted to say I loved her, that none of this was her fault, that adults were failing her in ways she would not understand until years later. But I stayed where I was. Love without boundaries was how I had ended up here. After they left, the hospital completed an incident report. The lobby cameras had recorded everything. Trevor's own live stream had captured him saying enough to damage himself. Maya was almost cheerful when I called her. He did this at your workplace? She asked. With cameras? I said yes. She exhaled slowly and said, that man just gift-wrapped evidence. That afternoon, we sent a second letter. This one was stronger. No direct contact except by email. No appearances at my home or workplace. No listing me as caregiver. No posts, videos, or statements implying I had abandoned children I had never agreed to supervise. The letter warned that continued conduct could support claims for harassment, defamation, and intentional interference with employment. By dinner, my mother was calling from blocked numbers. My father left a voicemail saying I had gone too far. Marissa posted a tearful story showing only her swollen eyes and one hand on her stomach. She said, some people punish children to prove a point. She never said my name, but she did not need to. Half of our church knew exactly who she meant. The comments filled with hearts, prayers, and women calling me cold without knowing my side. Trevor shared the video from the hospital, trimmed carefully so it began after he had already arrived. He captioned it, "This is what happens when family forgets family." That night, I sat in the glow of my laptop and watched strangers judge me from a 30-second lie. I felt anger rise in me, but it was not messy anymore. It was focused. They had chosen the public stage. Fine. I would not scream from the audience. I would bring receipts to the microphone. And 3 days later, at a baby sprinkle fundraiser my mother organized at church, that was exactly what I did. The theme of the baby sprinkle was, "It takes a village." I knew because the invitation was posted on Facebook, Instagram, and the church bulletin before anyone bothered to tell me. There were pastel balloons, a dessert table, a framed ultrasound photo, and a white donation box decorated with tiny gold footprints. The sign on the box read, "Help Marissa rest before baby number 4. I stood at the back of the fellowship hall for almost 5 full minutes before anyone noticed me. My mother was near the cake, accepting hugs like she was the one carrying the child. My father stood beside the donation table with his church smile on, shaking hands, letting people assume his family had been wounded by my cruelty. Marissa sat in a decorated chair wearing a soft pink dress, one hand on her stomach, the perfect picture of fragile motherhood. Trevor moved through the room like a campaign manager, thanking people for support and making sure the donation envelopes were visible. Pastor Grant stepped to the front and cleared his throat. He spoke about community, sacrifice, and how sometimes the people closest to us fail us the most. I watched heads turn slightly in my direction. People did not say my name, but their eyes did. Then Pastor Grant said, "Today, we are here to support a growing family in a difficult season." That was when I walked forward. My heels sounded louder than they should have on the fellowship hall floor. My mother saw me first. Her face went from sorrowful to terrified so quickly I almost smiled. "Camille," she whispered. "Do not do this." I said, "I am not here to ruin anything. I am here to correct the record." Trevor stepped in front of me. "You need to leave." I looked past him at Pastor Grant. "Pastor, before anyone donates based on the story they have been told, I would like 2 minutes." The room went silent. Pastor Grant's jaw tightened. He had already received Maya's email that morning. He knew there were legal concerns. He knew a fundraiser based on false claims could become a problem for the church. Slowly, he handed me the microphone. My voice did not shake. My name is Camille Carter. I love my nieces and nephew. I have bought school supplies, paid summer camp fees, covered groceries, helped with car repairs, and shown up for birthdays, fevers, recitals, and emergencies. What I did not do was agree to become the unpaid childcare plan for baby number 4. Marissa started crying immediately. Trevor said, "She is lying." I lifted my phone. "Then let's use documents." On the projector screen, I showed the first text, my mother telling me I would handle the kids. My response saying that was not my responsibility. Then I showed the police report from Lakeview Community Center with sensitive details covered. It stated clearly that 3 children had been left with a note naming me without my consent. A murmur spread through the room. I showed the school form with my name listed as primary pickup. I showed the daycare form with the fake signature. I showed the hospital incident report stating that Trevor attempted to leave 3 minors at my workplace and recorded staff after being told to stop. I did not show the children's medical information. I did not insult the kids. I did not call my sister names. I simply let paper do what my words never could. It stood still while they twisted themselves into knots. A woman from church stood up slowly. "Marissa, you told us Camille abandoned them." Marissa wiped her face and said, "She did. Emotionally." Trevor snapped, "This is private family business." A man near the back said, "Then why are you collecting public money for it?" The room shifted. Sympathy began turning into suspicion. Then I showed the final slide. It was not detailed enough to embarrass the children, but it listed categories and totals from the last 5 years. Groceries, school uniforms, birthday parties, emergency bills, gas money, car repairs, camps, childcare gaps. The total was high enough to make the room gasp. My mother gripped the edge of a table. My father stared at the floor. The mask of the poor, unsupported family cracked right down the middle. Pastor Grant walked to the donation box and placed one hand on top of it. "Until this is clarified, the church will not be accepting funds today. Anyone who has already donated may see the treasurer for a return." Trevor's face turned red. "You are really going to believe her?" Pastor Grant looked at him and said, "I believe documentation." That was the sentence that ended the show. Marissa stood up too fast, her chair scraping behind her. "I hope you are happy," she sobbed. "You humiliated a pregnant woman." I looked at her and felt something break. Not in pain, but in release. "No, Marissa, I stopped letting you use pregnancy as a shield for dishonesty." My mother slapped her hand over her mouth. My father finally looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw that he was not disappointed in me. He was afraid of me, not because I was dangerous, but because I was no longer controllable. I handed the microphone back to Pastor Grant and walked out before they could turn the room into another trial. But the consequences did not stay inside the church. By Monday morning, Trevor's boss at the dealership had seen the hospital video. By Tuesday, Marissa's online followers had seen enough screenshots to start asking questions. And by Wednesday, the daycare called me about an unpaid balance under my name. That was when I stopped correcting the record and started closing accounts. The daycare director sounded embarrassed when she called. She said she was sorry to bother me, but the account connected to Miles and Chloe had a past due balance, and since I was listed as the responsible payment contact, they needed to know when I planned to settle it. For a moment, I said nothing. Not because I was surprised anymore, but because there is a strange calm that comes when people prove you right too many times. I asked her to email me the contract. 10 minutes later, I opened it and saw my name again, Camille Carter, payment guarantor, authorized caregiver, signature at the bottom, another fake. This time, Maya did not send a warning letter. She filed. By noon, daycare had removed me from the account and demanded Marissa and Trevor appear in person with identification and payment. By 2, the elementary school had confirmed in writing that my name was removed from all pickup and emergency lists. By 4, the pediatric clinic did the same. Maya also sent formal notice to Trevor's employer because the hospital incident report showed he had used his company email address to print caregiver authorization forms. I did not ask for him to be fired. I did not have to. Adults are not destroyed by consequences. They are revealed by them. Trevor was suspended first. Then the dealership discovered he had used office equipment and client time for personal disputes. Then a customer complained after recognizing him from the hospital video and saying he would never buy a car from a man who tried to dump children in a hospital lobby. Within a week, Trevor was unemployed. He blamed me, of course. People like Trevor always blame the mirror for showing the stain. Marissa's mommy page fell apart next. Her followers had loved the soft lighting, the inspirational captions, the carefully edited image of a struggling mother doing her best. They did not love police reports, fake signatures, and church fundraiser questions. A small baby brand removed her from its affiliate list. Then another. She turned off her comments after someone wrote, "A village is not the same as one unpaid woman." That one made me laugh harder than I should have. My parents suffered differently. My mother lost her role as church event coordinator after Pastor Grant announced new rules for personal fundraisers. My father stepped down from the HOA board because neighbors began asking why a former community leader had pressured his daughter while ignoring forged documents. The man who had once silenced me with one look now avoided eye contact in grocery stores. But the most satisfying consequence was also the simplest. They had to watch the children themselves. No Camille, no automatic pickup, no emergency aunt, no quiet money appearing when their planning failed. My mother lasted 8 days before calling from a blocked number, breathless and angry. "Chloe threw up on the rug. Miles missed preschool. Harper has a project due tomorrow, and your sister cannot do this alone," I said. "Then her husband can help." My mother went silent. We both knew Trevor was at home, unemployed, but still somehow unavailable. "Camille," she said, softer now. "We did not know it was this hard." I closed my eyes. That sentence should have made me feel seen. Instead, it made me tired. "You knew it was hard," I said. "That is why you kept trying to give it to me." A month later, mediation was scheduled. Maya sat on one side of the table with me. Marissa, Trevor, Elaine, and Victor sat on the other with a lawyer who looked like he had already told them to keep quiet. They did not listen. Trevor tried to say the fake signatures were misunderstandings. Maya placed the forms side by side with his email print logs. Marissa tried to say I had always helped, so she assumed I would keep helping. Maya said, "Past generosity does not create future legal consent." My mother cried. My father stared at his hands. In the end, they signed everything. No direct contact for 12 months except through email. No posting about me. No using my name on any child-related document. No bringing children to my home or workplace. Trevor agreed to reimburse my legal fees and pay damages for interference with my employment. Marissa and Trevor were required to attend a parenting responsibility course because of the community center and hospital incidents. As they signed, Marissa looked at me with red eyes and whispered, "You changed." I said, "No, I became inconvenient to use." She flinched like I had slapped her. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That evening, I got an email from my hospital network. A senior emergency operations position had opened in Raleigh. Higher pay, better schedule, new city. 6 months earlier, I would have hesitated because my family needed me. That night, I accepted the interview before my guilt had time to wake up. 2 weeks later, I got the offer. The night before I moved, my phone rang from a number I did not know. I answered against my better judgment. My mother's voice came through, small and sharp at the same time. Are you really going to leave your family over a few babysitting problems? I looked around my half-empty apartment, at the boxes labeled books, kitchen, office, freedom. No, I said. I am leaving because I finally understand they were never just babysitting problems. Raleigh was quiet in a way that felt unreal at first. The first morning in my new apartment, I woke up before my alarm because my body was still trained for crisis. I reached for my phone expecting missed calls, emergencies, guilt, demands, someone needing a ride, a payment, a pickup, an apology I did not owe. There was nothing. Just one email from my new supervisor welcoming me to the regional operations team and one weather alert about afternoon rain. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the city move without needing anything from me. It felt strange. Then, it felt beautiful. 6 months passed. My work was demanding, but it was honest demanding. When a hospital needed coordination, it was because children were sick and systems mattered, not because adults had refused to plan their own lives. I made new friends. I started taking Saturday morning hikes. I bought groceries without calculating whether my sister would ask for half of them. I slept through the night. I learned that peace can feel boring when you are used to chaos. And then one day, boring becomes the most luxurious thing in the world. I still cared about Harper, Miles, Chloe, and the new baby, a little boy named Owen. That never changed. What changed was the form my love took. I sent birthday gifts through a delivery service. I contributed to a college fund that Maya helped structure so their parents could not touch it. I paid directly for a few therapy sessions when the children's school counselor recommended support. But I did not babysit. I did not pick up. I did not become the emergency plan. The adults who created those children were finally required to arrange care, pay invoices, adjust schedules, and live with the cost of their own choices. Marissa gave birth in late summer. There was no big party, no pastel fundraiser, no church speech about villages. The baby announcement got polite likes and very few comments. Trevor was working temporary shifts at a warehouse after the dealership let him go permanently. The SUV he loved disappeared from their driveway first, then the backyard furniture, then the weekly restaurant photos. Marissa went back to selling handmade baby blankets online, but the tone changed. She no longer posted captions about being blessed with a village. She posted discount codes. My mother and father aged quickly that year. Without the church roll and HOA status, they had fewer places to perform authority. They still helped Marissa, but now they understood what they had tried to force on me. School pickups, sick days, tantrums, bills, doctor appointments, laundry that never ended. My mother called once from a blocked number and said, "Camille, I need to say something." I almost hung up, but I waited. She breathed unevenly. "I did not know how much you were carrying." I looked down at my desk, where my calendar held meetings I had chosen and evenings that belonged to me. "Yes, you did," I said gently. "You just thought I would keep carrying it." She cried then. Real tears, maybe. Or maybe just another form of pressure. She asked if I could come home for a weekend because Marissa was overwhelmed. I said no. Then I offered to pay directly for one session with a childcare planning counselor who could help them build a real schedule. My mother said, "That is not the same as family helping." I said, "It is exactly family helping. It is just not family sacrificing one person anymore." That was the last full conversation we had. A week later, Marissa emailed me one sentence, "You made everyone hate us." I replied with one sentence back. No, I gave everyone the information they needed to stop blaming me. She did not answer. I was sitting on my balcony that evening when rain started falling over Raleigh. soft and silver under the streetlights. My phone was face down on the table. For once, I did not feel afraid of what might be waiting on the screen. I thought about that cookout, the way they had laughed when they told me my life was training for someone else's. I thought about the community center, the hospital lobby, the church projector, the mediation table. I thought about how many times I had confused being needed with being loved. The hardest lesson was not learning to say no. It was surviving the anger of people who benefited from my yes. Family should be a place where love is shared, not a system where one person is drained so everyone else can stay comfortable. Children deserve responsible parents, honest plans, and safe adults, not chaos disguised as tradition. Helping is meaningful when it is chosen freely. When it is demanded, manipulated, or forced through guilt, it stops being love and becomes control. My story taught me that boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are education. They teach others where respect begins, and they teach us that our peace has value. You can love people and still refuse to be used by them. You can care about children and still know they are not your responsibility to raise. You can walk away from a family pattern and still become a better person because of it. That night, I turned my phone off, listened to the rain, and smiled. For the first time in my life, no one was waiting for me to rescue them from the consequences of their own choices. And for the first time,